So finally, the jinx is broken for South African cricket. South Africa had to wait for 27 long years to lay their hands at an ICC trophy. I mean, the last time South Africa had won an ICC trophy, it was a knockout trophy, which is currently known as the ICC Champions Trophy. That was way back in 1998. And on the other hand, Australia have lost their first ICC final since 2010, that famous final in Barbados, which Australia lost to England in the T20 World Cup 2010. Markram's magic, Bavuma's bravery, Kagiso Rabada's fiery spell against Australia. I mean, it was a complete team effort by the Proteas. And yes, what a victory it has been for South Africa, winning the World Test Championship Final 2023-25 cycle, and that too at the iconic home of cricket, Lords in London. So let's rewind and find out how the game had panned out over the last 3.5-4 days in the iconic Lords Stadium in London. So day one in Lords London, cloudy skies, overcast conditions. South African skipper Themba Bavuma won the toss and he decided to have a bowl first. And bowling first, the South African pacers were really on fire, especially Kagiso Rabada and Marco Jansen. I mean, South Africa had reduced Australia to 67 for 4, courtesy some brilliant spells by Marco Jansen and Kagiso Rabada. And after that, it was the experience of Steve Smith along with Bo Webster. They both stitched a brilliant 79-run partnership. Stephen Smith scoring a brilliant half-century, but then he fell soon after to Aiden Markram. And after that, Bo Webster, he stitched some important partnerships lower down the order, and he scored 70-odd run knock that helped Australia cross past 200 runs in the first innings. Kagiso Rabada, I mean, he picked up a fifer and put up his name in the Lords Honours Book. So in reply to Australia's first innings total of 212 runs, South Africa did not start off well. I mean, Mitchell Starc, he was on fire right from the word go, and he destroyed the top order of the South African batting lineup, and South Africa were tottering at 30 for 4. And after that, it was the skipper Themba Bavuma who joined hands with David Bedingham, and they both started to rebuild the innings for South Africa. These two batsmen, they put on 64-run partnership, and that helped South Africa cross 90-run mark. But after that, it was Pat Cummins, the Australian skipper, who ran down the middle and lower order of the South African team, and he picked up a 6-for by conceding just 28 runs, and South Africa were skittled out for just 138 runs in the first innings. David Bedingham, he was the top scorer for South Africa, scoring just 45 runs. And with this, Australia took a massive first innings lead in the final of the WTC 2025. With a healthy lead of 74 runs in the first innings for Australia, Australia came out in the second innings quite confident. But the Proteas bowlers had other plans, as Kagiso Rabada, Marco Jansen and Lungisani Ngidi, these three pacers were really confident, and they rattled the Australian batting lineup as Australia were reduced to 73 for 7 in no time. Their only recognized batsman was Alex Carey, and the tail-ender Mitchell Starc, Nathan Lyon, Josh Hazlewood. I mean, it was a scary sign for Australia in the second innings, but then it was Alex Carey and Mitchell Starc who started building a partnership for Australia, and these two slowly and steadily stitched a brilliant 61-run partnership. I mean, Alex Carey went out before getting a well-deserved half-century, but Mitchell Starc, he continued, he started playing his strokes, and the Australian tail-ender started to frustrate the South African bowlers. South Africa nearly tried everything, but then Mitchell Starc was adamant and he really looked good in the crease, and Mitchell Starc scored a brilliant 58-run knock. And remember, the last 3 wickets for Australia yielded 134 runs. I mean, that is a huge amount of runs, and eventually Australia were bundled out for 207 runs, setting up a daunting total of 282 runs to win for South Africa and clinch the WTC 2025. Kagiso Rabada once again picking up 4 wickets in the second innings, 9 in the game, and Lungi Ngidi picking up 3 wickets in the crucial middle phase of the Australian second innings. So chasing 282 runs for a history to be created in Lords, South Africa started with Ryan Rickelton and Aiden Markram, but then Mitchell Starc removed Ryan Rickelton very early, and Australia claimed the first victim for South Africa, and South Africa were reduced to 9 for 1. And then came Wiaan Mulder. Mulder started building a partnership with Aiden Markram for the second wicket, and these two slowly took the South African score past 50. And eventually these two batsmen put on a brilliant 60-odd run knock, and South Africa lost their second wicket in the form of Wiaan Mulder at 70 for 2. And then came skipper Themba Bavuma, and he, along with Aiden Markram, the two most experienced batters for South Africa in the WTC final, they started to take on the responsibility on themselves and started building a good platform for the run chase. But then suddenly there was a hamstring injury for Themba Bavuma when he was just 6 or 10 runs. And during that time, it was Aiden Markram who insisted that he wanted Themba to be at the crease because he did not want to disturb the flow, the partnership which Themba and Aiden had started creating. And eventually Themba also wanted to continue the partnership which was growing and flourishing for South Africa. And by the end of day 3, would you believe, guys, South Africa were in a commanding position. Themba Bavuma limping for every single run. I mean, where there was a 3, Themba was taking just 2. Where there was a 2, Themba was taking 1. But then he ensured that he did not give up his wicket, and Aiden Markram, he scored freely. I mean, the strokes which came out of Markram's bat was a treat to watch for everyone in the stadium there in London. And by the end of day 3, South Africa required just 60-70 runs to win the WTC final going into day 4. So Aiden Markram and Themba Bavuma, they stitched 147 run match-winning partnership for South Africa. Themba Bavuma scoring 66 runs, and day 4 he lost his wicket quite early, but then Markram, he stood his ground. He scored a century and he went on and scored 136 runs. I mean, those were the most valuable 136 runs of Markram's entire international career. And by the time Markram lost his wicket, South Africa required just 6 runs to win the game, and then Virani and David Bedingham, they both completed the formalities, and it was all history in Lords, London. South Africa defeating Australia by 5 wickets and winning the World Test Championship 2025 final in Lords. I mean, it was scenes of glory and all jubilation all around the world, because South Africa had never won an ICC trophy since 27 years, and the long wait finally came to an end. Themba Bavuma has never lost a game, a test match, when he is the captain, and his record is intact. It's 100% on his CV, and South Africa lifting the World Test Championship final. I mean, South Africa had so many greats over the years. If you talk about Sean Pollock, Jack Callis, Graham Smith, Dale Steyn, A.B. de Villiers, Fab du Plessis, Mackay Tini, but never ever South Africa had won a major ICC title until now. But now the jinx is broken and Themba Bavuma can be a proud skipper for South Africa because history is made now and he becomes the first ever South African skipper to clinch a major ICC title for the Proteas.